Dear students, welcome to our third lecture on the topic of foundational mathematics required for machine learning. In last lecture, we discussed briefly about vectors, that what these vectors are, both geometrical as well as abstract notation to represent vectors. We also said that when we collect these vectors in some square or rectangular form, it becomes a matrix, and these vectors and matrices forms baseline of any data science method that we are going to use as part of the applied machine learning concepts. Now in this lecture, we are going to cover three very fundamental aspects that will help us converge towards end of this mind map that we prepared in last lecture. Specifically, we are going to talk about vector space. This is the word that we encounter many times in machine learning literature. Linear dependence of vectors and Gaussian elimination to solve system of linear equations. We already solved some linear equations last time, and we used Gaussian elimination implicitly, but this is in this slide, these slides, we will formally introduce this concept of Gaussian elimination. And to begin with, let us talk about reduced row echelon form. Last time I mentioned that in an equation system is said to be in reduced row echelon form, or REF, if every pivot element is 1, matrix is already in row echelon form, that means that staircase form is already there, and pivot is only non-zero element in the column. So for example, if we talk about a matrix which looks something like 1 0 1 0 1 0 0 0 1, if we try to identify the pivot columns, yes, this is a pivot row because the first element is non-zero and it is 1. Second row is also a pivot row, and hence this column which I am marking in blue is also a pivot column as it contains the pivot element. Similarly, third row is a pivot, and also this is a pivot column. All these elements are 1. The only non-zero element in this particular column is the pivot element itself, and hence we say that this particular row echelon form is specifically reduced row echelon form. Now, how we obtain these reduced echelon forms or row echelon forms? We use some series of transformations, and these transformations often include dividing a particular row. Let us say there is a row in a matrix, row J. If we divide it by a constant, let us say lambda, where lambda is a scalar, or we interchange position of two rows, or we say that Ri can be expressed as a linear function of other rows, which may be addition or subtraction, multiplication by a scalar and then addition or subtraction. So all these transformations that we follow to convert any matrix into its reduced row echelon form are called as Gaussian elimination transformations, and these are typically used in various data sciences and machine learning approaches. Fortunate for us, many computers do these Gaussian elimination transformations to express matrices into these row echelon form or reduced row echelon forms. But still, it is good to know, if you have to do it on a paper, that ultimate our target is to reduce a matrix in REF form so that our calculations become much easier. Now, with this background, let us get started with our today's lecture, where we are going to talk about vector spaces. Last time I mentioned that if we say that there is a vector V which belongs to, which have some element 0, 3, 4, 5 and 6, we say that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 elements here, and we say that this belongs to a real 5-dimensional vector space. And this word vector space is very important, that we would understand today that what it really means. So when we talk about vector spaces, we say that a vector space allows two operations, that any vector that follows these two operations, such that if we add two vectors falling within a vector space and result is the same di- n-dimensional vector, we say that the addition property is justified. Similarly, the second operation that we identify is the multiplication operation, that we multiply any vector with a constant lambda, where lambda is a real number, then again the output is in the same dimensional vector space. That means you add two vectors of dimension, let us say v belongs to r square, with another vector v2, this is v1, which also belongs to same two dimensional object, and we add them, we still get the resultant vector v3, which also belongs to r2. That means there is a property of closure which is justified. That means for the fundamental operations that we defined, which is addition and multiplication by a scalar, we are not going to leave our vector space, and this is what we call as the property of closure. So all the vectors that fall within a vector space, they follow this property of closure. Also, another important property associated with vector space is that 0 is always the element of the vector space. So for example, if we are talking about 5-dimensional vector space, that would mean that 5 zeros and their transpose should always be an element of this R5. If that is not the case, then the given space would not be qualified as a vector space, and we will talk about that, what would happen to such spaces where 0 is not a fundamental element of it. Now this discussion of vector spaces can also be extended to matrices. For example, we learned that if you have a matrix or m cross n dimensional matrix, it is equivalent to a row vector of mn size, and hence if the properties, if this belongs to a certain vector space, that would mean that all the properties of addition and multiplication with scalar would also extend to the matrices. And again, 0 has to be an element of that mn dimensional vector space that we are talking about. Now the reason we are introducing this vector spaces into our discussion, because we will often encounter this notation of r to the power m, r to the power n, or r to the power mn, which is basically saying that a particular vector belongs to an m-dimensional vector space or an n-dimensional vector space or mn dimensional vector space, and as soon as it qualifies it to be called as a constituent of a vector space, we can always apply the multiplication by scalar or addition properties to a given vector. Now this brings us to an important concept which we call as vector subspaces. Vector subspaces are key elements in the concept of machine learning, as they would be backbone or cornerstone of the concepts of dimensionality reduction that we will discuss eventually. Now, as the name suggests, these vector subspaces, that means that if V is our vector space and U is vector subspace, as the name suggests, this U should be an element, or it should be the constituent of this vector space V, or it is a subset of this big vector space that we are talking about. However, there are certain properties that vector subspace has to follow. These properties are: if we add two elements falling within same vector subspace, let us say that x and y, they belong to a same vector subspace. If we add these two together, x and y, the output would be some x plus y of the same dimension. But this output should also be part of the same vector space. It should never leave that vector space. For example, let us consider that we have a square which is a vector subspace. We call this is a U, and our V is a two-dimensional vector space, and U is a small square which we say is a subspace within that large two-dimensional space. Let us consider there are two vectors, one vector here and another vector in red, that another vector in black that I'm showing somewhere here. Now if we multiply this blue vector by a very large number, let us say 1000, the resultant would be somewhere here. That means we have left this vector subspace, as a result of which the property of closure is not justified. That means we took a vector that was totally within this vector subspace, we multiplied it with the constant, and as soon as we did that, it has a tendency to leave out this subspace. Hence we cannot say that U is a subspace. U does not qualify to be called as a vector subspace of V. Also, 0 is always contained into subspace. These subspaces are typically denoted by U, and vector spaces are typically represented by capital V. For example, let us consider an example of a line. Now, if you have this line, if there is an element that lies along this line, if you add two elements along the line, they would always be along this particular one-dimensional line. That means property of closure is just justified. Similarly, there is a vector and along this line and you multiply it by some constant, it would always fall along this particular line. It may be here or here depending on the magnitude of multiplication if that vector is lying along that line. However, the problem in this case is that 0 or origin is not the part of this particular line, and hence any line which is displaced from the origin does not qualify to be called as vector subspace, as 0 is not contained as an element into that line. So that would mean that for this line to be qualified as vector subspace, it has to pass through an origin. So if it is passing through an origin, then we have a vector here. If we multiply it by some constant, it will only scale along these lines. If we add two vectors which are collinear, the result would always be a third vector which is sort of added in the same direction and so on. And hence we justify the property of closure. We say that 0 belongs to this particular U, which is the one-dimensional subspace within the two-dimensional vector space. So now if you focus on here, we are talking about U and V, where U qualifies to be subspace and V qualifies to be space if 0 is contained, property of closure is satisfied, and U belongs to V. If this is clear, we are good to go and talk about the property of linear dependence or linear independence in the terms of vector space and vector subspaces. So we say that there are multiple vectors that would fall into a vector space. Let us say they are represented by x1, x2, all the way till xk, where all these vectors for I equal to 1 to k belong to some n-dimensional vector space. When we say that they are linearly dependent, we say that we can always represent any vector v as the linear combination of lambda 1 x1 plus lambda 2 x2 up to lambda k xk. In that case, we say that this any vector v is linearly dependent upon x1, x2, x3 and n and so on. Now if we talk about that, how we can say that x1, x2, x3 and xk, they are linearly dependent or linearly independent among themselves, then we say that if vector v is represented by 0 vector, which also belongs to the same dimensional vector space, and at least one of these lambdas is not equal to 0, that would mean that there exists a linear dependence. What does that mean? For example, consider there are two vectors 1 0 and 0 1. If you plot these vectors on geometrical and their geometrical representation, they will look something like this. This would be 1 0 and this is going to be 0 1, which typically represent the Cartesian coordinates, and we want to show whether these two vectors are linearly dependent or not. We know that we cannot take any components or we cannot express this x coordinate in terms of y coordinate, so by intuition we know that they are linearly independent. So what we will say that if we can write 0 as lambda 1 times 1 times 0 plus lambda 2 0 1, and if lambda 1 is not equal to 0 or lambda 2 is not equal to 0, any of them is not equal to 0, we say that we can express this 0 0 as a linear combination of vector 1 and vector 2, which implicitly would mean that they are dependent. On the other hand, if lambda 1 has to be equal to 0 and lambda 2 has to be equal to 0 for to achieve this resultant vector as 0, we say that they are definitely linearly independent. Now in this case, there is no way you can choose any other values of lambdas. Lambda 1 has to be 0 and lambda 2 has to be 0 for these to be 0. That would mean that they are actually linearly independent, because lambda 1 and lambda 2, for any real value, you take any non-zero value, the output would always be non-zero in that case. On the other hand, if we talk about vector 2 3 and the same question arises, is this vector 2 3 a linear combination of vector 1 0 and 0 1? That would mean, can we identify some non-zero constants where we can write this as lambda 1 and lambda 2 as or multiply these lambda 1 and lambda 2 by these two vectors and get the output as 2 comma and 2 by 3. Now you can clearly see that if lambda 1 is equal to 2, lambda 2 equal to 3, both of them are not equal to 0, we say that this vector v is actually linear combination of these two vectors, which are represented by 1 0 and 0 1. And from basic understanding of coordinate geometry, we know that we can represent any two-dimensional vector as a linear combination of the two Cartesian coordinates. Basically, if you have a Cartesian system like this, there is a vector here or a vector here or a vector here, we can always take its resultant and express it as some combination of its coordinate along the x and combination along the y. Same thing can be done here. Here the point would be x1 and here point would be y1 and so on, but we can always represent in these the two coordinate system. This linear dependence and linear independence is very important when we will go to dimensionality reduction, but make sure that you get this concept right. And now we will extend this concept beyond the two-dimensional geometrical construct. For example, let us say that we are given three vectors. X1 is a vector in four-dimensional vector space. X2 is another vector in four-dimensional vector space. Similarly, X3 is our third vector represented by -1, -2, 1 and 1. And now we are interested to find whether these three vectors are linearly dependent or non-dependent. Now here we would be dealing with lambda 1, lambda 2, lambda 3 and checking for all the values of lambda 1, lambda 2, lambda 3 that would render combination of lambda 1 x1 plus lambda 2 x2 plus lambda 3 x3 equal to 0, where lambda 1 where x1 x2 x3 are vectors would not be a trivial task. Here again we will use our row echelon forms or reduced row echelon forms to understand whether they are linear combinations or not. If you remember, I mentioned that if a particular matrix is expressed in its reduced row echelon form, and in those matrices we can always represent non-pivot columns as linear combination of pivot columns. If we can do some linear combinations to express non-pivot columns as linear as pivot columns, that would mean that these columns or the elements of that matrix are linearly dependent. Hence, if we can show that all the columns present in a given matrix are pivot columns, that would mean that all the elements are independent, or all the columns are independent in a given matrix. So let us try to do it with this example. So from these three vectors, we will put them together and construct our new matrix: 1 2 minus 3 4 1 1 0 2 minus 1 minus 2 1 1, and we will try to reduce it to a row echelon form, because we want to say that if this is x1, this is x2, and this is x3, my lambda 1 x1 plus lambda 2 x2 plus lambda 3 x3 has to be equal to 0. So this matrix would be constituted by x1, x2 and x3 in this case. After applying some transformations, that is swap of rows or multiplication of a row by a constant and so on and so forth, we can reduce this to a form which I leave as an exercise, that try to reduce it to the form of 1 1 minus 1 0 1 0 0 0 1 and 0 0 0. Now let us try to see that whether all rows are row echelons, or whether all columns are in reduced form, whether all columns are pivot columns or not. Now if we go to the first row, first element is non-zero and it is 1, hence this qualifies to be a pivot column, and all other elements in this particular case are equal to 0. If we go here, this again is equal to 1, and in this case this is also a pivot column. Remember that although this is 1, there are other non-zero elements present in this column. Hence, this can be in a row echelon form, but not necessarily in the reduced row echelon form. Similarly, when we go to the third row, we again encounter 1 here. So that would mean that it satisfies all the condition to be in row echelon form, and all three columns here are pivot columns. Since all columns are pivot columns, we can say that all columns are independent of each other, and if they are independent of each other, that means lambda 1, lambda 2, lambda 3 has to be equal to 0 for lambda 1 x1 plus lambda 2 x2 plus lambda 3 x3 equal to 0, and hence implying the linear independence. This concept of linear dependence and linear independence later would help us determine the basis of various matrices. In next lecture, we will combine this understanding of vector spaces together with linear dependence to understand what span and basis of matrix would mean, and these bases will help us determine the coordinates of a vector.